Yay, thank you.
So thanks for so far today. It's been a lot of good information. I've been catching myself taking a lot of notes and just learning as well as I've kind of came to tend to be a presenter, but I've become a student. It's not very often either that I am not the most northern person in these meetings, and so it's nice to see some other northern folk in these meetings. So I'm just going to share my screen here really quick, and we'll get started. Okay. Everybody see that all right? I guess so. Okay, yes, thumbs up. Sorry, I have multiple screens, so I'm just trying to find where everything just went now. Um, so yes, so as I was, sorry, now I've lost my ability to control. There we go. So as mentioned, my name is Jordan Asels. I'm a member of Canada First Nation down in Treaty 8 territory, Northern Alberta, so not quite as northern, though I have lived in Northwest Territories and was actually born in Fort Simpson. My father was an RCMP, traveled around a lot, fell in love with the North, and then he never left. And so yeah, he finally finished his career in Hay River, but yeah, he lived all across the Northwest Territories. Currently, I'm the CEDI program manager. I started back in February of this past year. I transitioned from a position that I was working with my nation. I was the economic development manager, then director, and then the executive director for a number of years before moving on over to the CEDI program under Cando. I'm a graduate from the University of Lethbridge and University of Manitoba. I hold a bachelor's degree in Native American Studies and a Bachelor of Social Work, both of which I found beneficial in my career as in economic development. I have 20 years experience managing and supervising multidisciplinary teams aimed at providing and building healthy individuals and families and communities. Um, and then, I've used my experience and background to build communities and as well as families within the community. I really am a true believer that economic development is more than just businesses, and it really is, a part and parcel of a bigger picture when it comes to building a community in terms of socioeconomic conditions and to improve the overall health and wellness of your community, which we'll get into as well. Aside from all this stuff that you'd find on my LinkedIn profile, I'm also a father, a husband, a son, a grandson, a brother, and an uncle. I was predominantly raised by women in my community, which is likely where I get my strength and determination, my ethics, and my stubbornness from. Throughout my career, I've helped and support over 1,000 youth and families in various capacities. I did some quick math the other day, thinking about everybody that I've helped over the time, and yeah, it just kind of the number continued to keep climbing. So we'll get started. So why economic development? This is a definition that I found that I've come to use over and over again. You can Google and you'd come up with several different definitions of what economic development is. But this one sticks for me simply because it speaks to bettering the health, education, and social conditions of the people. And then, that's what really draws me towards economic development is building a whole community. It's well known that a thriving economy is dependent on the support and contribution of the people. Hence, you need the people to be just as healthy. And I've always simultaneously focused on building up our members to support the aspirations of the nation. So just a little segues, the little pictures there are just a different snapshots of our community working with the town of High Level. The top picture is just us signing our friendship agreement, after our CEDI graduation. And below is just a partnership with TELUS putting in high-speed fiber optics into the community. So since 2013, Cando and the Federation of Canadian Municipalities have co-designed and co-delivered the CEDI program. We are two distinct organizations with unique cultures, processes, and policies. While we differ in organization size, we each have unique strengths that we bring to our partnership. We are both partnership-based organizations. Cando's mandate is to support Indigenous communities to build capacity and economic development, while FCM's mandate is to bring together Canadian municipalities to speak with one voice to influence federal policies and programs. Over the past 11 years, our partnership, we have many lessons learned about working together as two unique separate organizations. We share this with you because we think it is important for you to know that we practice what we ask our partner First Nation communities to do, and work together to be stronger together. So beginning with a pilot in 2013, CEDI has now worked with 15 formal partnerships across the country over 2 phases. We are currently supporting 8 partnerships in phase 3 that began in 2022, and it should run up until the end of this fiscal year. So March of 2025, we'd have all those 8 partnerships graduated. In addition to that, we've also supported an additional 5 prairie partnerships that began their journey as well this past fall. We've worked with a variety of partnerships, past CEDI partnerships. Sorry. So we have worked with a variety of partnerships that have varied in number of partner communities per partnership, strength of relationship, geographical distances between partner communities, remote, rural, and urban partnerships, and economic development sectors and opportunities. The demand for the CEDI program remains high, including this current intake. We have received over 500 quality applications during the time since 2013. So the CEDI program operates with 2 main program goals: to support communities to establish sustainable and resilient relationships between economic officials, senior administrators, land management, and economic development staff, and the broader communities; to increase the capacity of communities to engage in and develop joint long-term land use and community economic development plans and initiatives. When only one of these goals is prioritized, partnerships can be transactional and will not be sustainable over the long term. Meaning that that's kind of currently what happens now, is that one of these goals is typically is only achieved in the current partnership status, is what right now when First Nations work with the municipalities, and so in doing so that they're more just working together for a specific project rather than the long term over years to come. This is why these programs goals are equally important. The first helps to establish sustainable, respectful, and resilient relationships and a government-to-government partnership. And the second is tests and builds the capacity of the partnership in an active and collaborative way. So CEDI understands and works within the following definition. It's very similar to the one I shared earlier, in that it speaks to the economic, social, and environmental objectives of economic development. Additionally, it speaks a little more to the innovative solutions that come from joint community economic development. Speaking from experience, my community was involved in this, and we'll get to that in a couple slides here, but we had a unique problem. The town did as well, and we didn't alone, each individual communities couldn't solve the problem. But once we started with the CEDI program, we came together and we started to realize that we were able to help each other with each other's problems, and then we came to a unique solution that kind of benefited both communities in a huge way. But I won't give any spoilers out just yet. I will share that shortly here. So some of the benefits of First Nation municipal collaboration is, as it has been shared with us from past partnerships, although First Nation and municipalities operate under different legislation and jurisdictions and governance models, the First Nations and municipalities have the same vision to improve the lives of their members or citizens in their communities. When First Nations and municipalities team up with shared goal, we see several mutually beneficial results emerging, such as the many that are shared here on the slide. And please, if there's any questions, I can't see the chat, so just feel free to interrupt me. So some of the examples of the joint First Nation municipal community economic development is the Joint Regional Economic Development Strategic Plan. We've seen joint tourism strategies, joint land use plans, and joint planning. Jointly managed provincial parks was one that kind of came up during my time during the program. We attempted to partner on something that was somewhat near to us, but it didn't come to fruition. Joint Indigenous employment strategies, that was also one that was quite popular during my time during the program, and I see it still being a focus of partnerships. Boundary interface protocols and strategies, joint active transportation plan, and like mentioned in the youth panel, the joint emergency preparedness and economic resiliencies. This was a focus of our partnership as well, and something that as years can kind of continue, there's more and more threat to our communities, and I think this is going to be an important one to focus on in the futures coming. So here's my partnership, Denethor First Nation, the town of High Level. We collaborated on 3 community economic development initiatives. So the waterline connection between one of our communities, Bushy River, and the town, and a feasibility study for the wastewater infrastructure at Bushy River to service the region. We designed design phase of a multi-use center for emergency evacuation and recreation. And then we developed a joint emergency regional plan for all 4 communities. Like Denethor has 3 communities that have populations in, whereas and then the town of High Level making it the 4. We maintain a committed joint working group guided by terms of reference, and we drafted a friendship agreement that you had seen in the picture there, and created a shared logo and a 5-year joint strategic plan as well. So this partnership is still actively going, as you'll see. Just a little bit on that when I talked about a unique solution there, is that the town of High Level, they had grown past or up into their borders, and as the community continued to grow, their infrastructure couldn't keep up with the needs, and so their wastewater plant was actually wasn't keeping up to the needs of the town. Whereas our community borders the town of High Level, but yet we didn't have water into our community yet. And so while the town couldn't expand their services, they were able to provide us water, but then because of their limitations, we actually struck a deal where we could provide the wastewater treatment on reserve, and then handle the load from the town. And so it would be a 1-to-1 swap where our community would get water, the town would be able to solve their problem with their wastewater. And so it was something that we, had been in the works for almost 30 years. It kind of finally came to fruition through the CEDI program. And so, all of as many of these joint initiatives as that we had envisioned and wanting to do right away, based on the excitement, we settled on these 3, mostly because it came out of necessity. During our time with the CEDI program, I think upon our first meeting as a group, we were evacuated within the first 2 months of our partnership, the town of High Level, as well as two of our 3 communities, due to wildfire. And so we kind of, after going through that process and finding out, and trying to work together and learning each other's processes, we realized that this whole evacuation could have been made easier if we had worked together rather than in silos. And so we had a very valuable lesson during that time in terms of working together and being able to kind of lean on each other for their expertise, and then as well as the resources that each community had. And from that came the joint emergency regional plan. And so we tried to do that as a fuller region, and as much as we tried to pull in other communities around us as well, there was some resistance, but that continues to kind of grow even to today. So like I said, that this partnership kind of spanned over a couple councils. And so the top picture was our first meeting as a cohort. So that's a collection of town council, nation council, as well as the staff members from each of the communities. This was who we had when we started the meeting. And although the Friendship Accord was drafted by that original group, it wasn't until the second chief and council came on board that it was signed. Mostly because both councils didn't want to sign into an agreement that potential new council might not agree with, but once they got in, they quickly realized how important it was to work together. And today, like even to this day, even though I'm not with the nation, I still maintain relationships with a number of those council members on both sides, as well as the mayor and the chief. And we're constantly meeting, and like just the importance of the ability to work together has created so many friendships. Whereas before, the mayor you'd rarely see the mayor out on in the community, but now she regularly would stop in. She knows everybody. She's a familiar face. She's a friend, and she has no problem coming to meet with our elected officials to get things done to the benefits both communities in different ways. And then vice versa, our chief will be regularly seen heading into the office to meet with the mayor as well. So this was a partnership that I wasn't part of. This is our only Northwest Territories partnership. So forgive me if I don't have all the information about the partnership, but they were actually in the same cohort that I was. And they also had the benefit of having to go through their partnership through COVID. So it was a very difficult time, to say the least, to have our meetings and do what we needed to do. But they were also successful in a number of joint economic development strategies. They developed a local business and entrepreneurship support network, created a localized workforce development plan, and development of a regional tourism plan. They also maintain their joint working group guided by terms of reference, and they signed their memorandum of understanding December 5th in 2019. During their time, they successfully applied for and received joint funding from Cando. They leveraged the funding that comes through the CEDI program. They created the shared vision statement. Three communities working in harmony towards a sustainable, healthy, prosperous future with mutual respect in a spirit of reconciliation, honoring connection to land and creator, stronger together. And then as well as a tagline, the partnership tagline, with the beat of the drum, three communities, one heart. Fortunately, I do not know how to read the translation, but I'm sure many of you here may know how to do that. Another interesting fact about the Yellowknife, like this partnership, was that it was CEDI's first 2-year accelerated partnership, which we learned a lot from in terms of how we can deliver the program in a different way. And because there was an established relationship already that was somewhat strong, they actually were able to complete the program in a quicker pace than my own partnership. So the CEDI's Stronger Together approach is 4 phases, but they're not. It's not linear as is kind of depicted here. While it is fluid and cyclical and iterative approach that is led by the partner communities and we are working with. Stage A is connect. First Nations and municipalities meet, begin to engage in learning from each other, challenge assumptions and expand understanding, identify shared community development priorities, and commit to establish a partnership. Stage B, vision. Partner communities continue to engage in shared learning, identify shared values and vision, engage their communities and collaboratively define community economic development priorities. Stage C, decide. They decide on a joint community economic development initiative to work on together, develop strategic plan and work plans as required, identify funding as required, and set up governance structures to manage implementation. And stage D is act. Continue to work together to implement the joint community economic development initiative work plan. Engage community members, stakeholders, and funders, create partnership agreements as directed by the partnership and joint initiative and plan for partnership resiliency. So best practices that we've come to learn over the first 2 phases, and as I mentioned before, these our program and continues to evolve as we learn more and more with each partnership. We continue to build into different ways to make it more effective and efficient. So one of the best practices we've learned is to connect. So even once the partnerships are accepted into the program, CEDI will send them a letter of invitation into the program. So that's kind of like their official agreement to be in the agreements to be in the program, at least for the first little while. So they still have to accept our letter of invitation once they've applied. And then from there, we have our first workshop meeting. The workshop meeting, if everybody goes well and if things are still progressing well and that both communities still want to work together, they do their commitment through a council resolution on both ends. And then from there, we start establishing the working group, and then we create our dialogue principles and how we're going to work together. We give both communities or the partnership multiple options and opportunities to kind of make sure that this is really what they want, because the process is a 3-year process. It's a commitment of time to kind of really build that relationship in a different way, and to kind of overcome the hurdles that have stopped them from working together effectively in the past. And so we really do make sure that the willingness is there on both ends before we kind of continue and proceed with the program. Sorry, I see multiple chats here. I'm just going to quickly see if there was any.
There was one question in there about are most municipalities aware of you and
I
your
would
work?
say, yeah, I see that here. Yeah, I would say they are. FCM, our partnership, it does a very good job. Their membership, it includes almost 90% of municipalities across Canada. And so whenever we do our call for applications, they're a great partner to make sure that the word gets out, that they're sharing it at at all levels of their social media, their conferences. And so we try to work together and utilizing our both shared networks to individual and shared networks to kind of get that information out there. So FCM has been a great partner in continuing to support CEDI to meet its objectives.
Wonderful. And there's the other question about the presentation. They could get a copy, and I see Barry had the comment about being able to share this with the city of Brampton and the region of the Peel.
Yeah, absolutely. I have no problem sharing a copy of this. And so I believe Danielle has a copy of it already. So
It does, okay.
Yeah, she can send that out.
Wonderful. Thank you. Are there questions for Jordan and the program? I see Trent had a comment. I think Danielle will send out the presentation to all participants.
Yeah. Okay. So one of the other best practices we've kind of identified is vision. And so this is kind of where a lot of the work happens, especially for the working group. This is kind of where we kind of throw everything at the wall and see what sticks. I kind of still feel bad for Marissa, one of my colleagues here at CEDI, is that she was our facilitator, and we gave her a multitude of ideas that we had all thought we could potentially do. And so I'm sure while it was an overwhelming exercise for her, we had the task of narrowing it down to like what is achievable during that time and kind of like what makes sense for now, and then what can kind of wait for the 5-year plan. So we developed the working group terms of reference. That is a guide that helps us work together in a more cohesive way as well. But like with that being said, that the terms of reference was always evolving. Every meeting that we had, there was something that we learned new about each other, and then we would continue to add or subtract from that document to make sure it really made sense for our collaboration moving forward. Ongoing working group meetings. So we met, as a whole monthly. The working group meetings, we'll get to like who's involved with that, but it is a smaller group compared to what you'd see at the larger workshop, like in those pictures that we had. Outside of these monthly meetings, we had subcommittee meetings that were also part of that we would bring back to report to the working group meetings. Identify and prioritize our joint CED opportunities, and this is where we kind of came up and had, I would think, like 30 or 40 different things that we decided we wanted to work on, which was, it is exactly what it's for. Is like you put everything out there and see where we have the overlap. We identified our shared vision, what we wanted together. We start to draft our relationship accord, and that's something that kind of starts in the early stages, but continues to carry forward right up until the very end of the partnership. And then the shared learning, the First Nation municipal governance and jurisdiction. I think that was also one of my favorite parts of our conversation. We'll kind of get into that as well, in terms of how the learning went and some of the things that I've noted, just from being in my role. So best practice decide. And so here from this point in time, the working group is really pushing the agenda and the objectives, really narrowing down what it is that this group's going to be, and then we bring it back to the fuller, larger group in a workshop. And so still at this time, the working group meetings are still happening, and we bring it to the workshop to kind of present to the larger group. But what it is we're actually going to focus on, what we're going to do. We look for guidance and approval. So we bring our relationship accord back, we present it, and if you're lucky enough that everybody's on the same page, you sign and you can celebrate that relationship accord. Unfortunately for us, that it took a couple different drafts of going back and forth and to making sure it was just right and reflective of what the larger group wanted. Same thing with the guided by shared vision. And then when we got to select our joint initiatives, and this really actually was quite easy based on the experience of being evacuated for the fire. My community in the last 5 years have been evacuated from the community 6 times, and at that point it had already been 3 times due to floods and fires. And so that kind of pushed us for a reasoning to go ahead and focus on an emergency shelter. And then, yeah, like I said, that unique solution for the water and wastewater was something that was, necessary for our community, especially to move forward with any kind of economic development ventures on the reserve. And then design a joint community economic development governance structure if necessary. We didn't really do this one as formalized it. It was within our relationship accord that who's going to be in attendance and who continues to meet on a regular basis. We did set it up that there would be a joint quarterly council meetings for both communities, that they would come to each other's community, and so that was kind of built into our relationship accord, rather than having a separate document for that. But all these things are meant to be able to really establish the rules of working together and how we work together. And the last one is to act. And so once we've decided what we were going to do, again, we're still meeting as a working group, but we start acting on our joint work plan, our joint economic strategic plan. That's developed, and now we're looking at moving forward with our 3 initiatives, and actually making some ground and spending the fundings that we get from the CEDI program. We split our funding 3 different ways to kind of support each of our CEDI objectives that we wanted to achieve during that time. We created our 5-year strategic plan, and it's a document that still kind of lives to this day, and we still reference it as a community, as opportunities continue to grow. It's been 3 years since we've been out of the program already, and we're just finally only on the 3rd phase of our wastewater development plan. And so it's 4 phases altogether to get the water and wastewater up, and we're only in the 3rd phase now. We're just finishing the 2nd and moving into the 3rd. Given that it's almost winter, I don't think there'll be much building that happens until the spring. So it's slowly coming along, but it's still something that we're moving towards. And then of course we engage communities and celebrate the relationship accord or MOU. So the picture that you had seen previously was at our annual tea dance, and we had both councils there. We had speeches from both sides. We signed the agreement. The communities were, well informed of what was going on prior to the signing. And yeah, we had everybody there to kind of celebrate that union, and we continue to celebrate that annually. This past year was would have been our first anniversary. Again, our communities were dealing with forest fires, and so it was a little difficult to have a full-on celebration, but it was referenced in the annuals tea dance again, but it was just at a different date. So in addition to the best practices that we've kind of found, is there's also wise practices, approaches, and tools. So I'm going to introduce 3 wise practices for successful First Nation municipal collaboration to focus on. Each of these have roots in the Stronger Together toolkit and have evolved through partnership feedback and lessons learned. So there's the working group, the shared learning, and prioritization using co-created criteria. And we'll get into a little more of these on the next slide. So the wise practice working group. So just a segue is that all of our tools are available for download, and templates are online for everybody to use. They're free, and some of the tools for the working group, the terms of reference template, the dialogue principles to establish respectful communication norms, and sample agendas. They're on there for use to kind of, if there's anybody out there that kind of wants to start working through this, or establishing a groundwork for a relationship with the municipality or First Nation community, it could do so. So why working group? Like I said, the working group really is the backbone of the whole CEDI program. They're the ones that are in the subcommittee meetings, the committee meetings, and the monthly meetings, and doing a lot of the work to kind of bring back to the larger group. In those meetings, I found that that's where those relationships are really grown and strengthened, is because you have constant contact with the person that's your equal, or someone who's in the same field as you on the other side of that relationship, and so you grow those bonds, and you can quickly learn about how their processes are different, and how to work through the different policies and the red tape of both sides to make sure that we can kind of work together and move forward. And then also learning about each other's resources. Going through this process for myself was pretty eye-opening, because there's a lot of misconceptions that each side had, that we just thought were truths, but they absolutely weren't. And we were able to find out the actual processes of how things happen, and how to get work done. There was also many times where the nation would be developing something, and we didn't have the tools or the templates, but that the town of high level had plenty of resources in the same area, and we're more than willing to share those kind of things for us, so we didn't have to recreate the wheel. So one of the wise practices is that who should be in there is absolutely, you need an elected official, at least one. Having multiple is a little better, just because if one can't make it, the other one can step in their stead and still be up to date on what's going on. And then having 2 or 3 staff members, senior administrator, and then 2 economic development officers, or a planner, or a lands manager. While I was going through this, I was the economic development officer for my community. And it was, the meetings worked well, but I would say, having that 2 elected officials worked better, just because when that one elected official wasn't there, it would stall out the work that we were trying to do, because we still needed that leadership to kind of move forward, until we can get to the actual larger group. And so it was our role to kind of continue to develop the work plans, and then share them with the larger group, but also present that stuff, present all the things that we've been working on to the group for decisions. And so it was a lot of kind of back and forth work, it's kind of like we get our marching orders from the larger group, and we continue to work together in different ways to make sure that this partnership is moving forward. And so every time we meet for our annual meeting or biannual meeting, we've made a lot of progress over the 8 months in between meetings. And so this is also from my community as well. So the purpose of the terms of reference here was just for us to have that shared understanding of how we're going to work together, and as well as to be able to overcome any kind of barriers or historical issues that have been there in the past. And like it helps us navigate each other's communities and making sure that we're still working together towards a common goal, to make sure that we're trying to achieve the same place. So the wise practice for shared learning. So mutual understanding, respect, and trust are the basis of a strong relationship. To succeed at building respectful, equitable partnerships, each community needs to start by investing in learning about the history, traditions, realities, and priorities of its neighbors. However, it is important to recognize where the First Nation municipal relationship is starting from. It would be not factually fair to say that First Nation and municipalities are similar to endure the same struggles. Or similar or endure the same struggles. First Nation communities do not experience the same privileges that municipalities do, and First Nation communities have learned to live and thrive despite many oppressive and restrictive policies throughout the continuing into colonization. The Stronger Together process prioritizes and embeds relationship building throughout the 4 stages. And it is foundational to the First Nations and municipalities prioritize learning about what they have in common and where they have unique challenges and opportunities. This not only makes working together easier, but also builds the understanding necessary to address complex problems and collaborative initiatives together. And like I said earlier, this was part of one of the more enjoyable things that we did during our time, because they essentially split us into the 2 groups. And I'm not saying this happens in every partnership, but within our partnership, they basically gave us the task of identifying the other's history in kind of chronological order. And I was simply amazed at our leadership's ability to start from the year the town was created all the way up until now. They were able to list a multitude of mayors when the town became a town legally, and just had like a huge history. Like it was multiple pages, and then the disparity, seen across the room in terms of like how little the town knew or understood, the policies, the politics in our community, and how long it was established, and which all the names of the different reserves that we have. It was like just eye-opening again, to see kind of like how much our community knows about others, but how little the municipalities actually knew about our community. And the conversation probably could have went one of 2 ways, but our leadership was very graceful, and kind of laughed and talked about why it is that they know so much. And they hit it the nail on the head, is that like this is from where we're from and where we grew up from, and we've always existed in this place, whereas you have town officials and people from the town that are they come and go based on jobs, but for us this is home, and it always will be. So we'll continue to exist here, and so the history that we have is much more rich in the area. And so the last one is prioritization. So this is kind of where we make sure that what is the priority for the communities in terms of moving forward. Lots of conversations and discussions about what we want to focus on, what's achievable during our time together, and what do we have the capacity to get done during that time. And so for us, obviously, again, like I referenced, that we were going through emergencies, and so that became our priority, and it continues to this day that we're still facing floods and fires in our region, and so like that continues to be a priority for us, and we continue to move forward on those initiatives that we had identified so many years ago. So the Stronger Together Toolkit is a detailed step-by-step guide to initiate, strengthen a First Nation municipal partnership and collaborative community economic development planning. the handouts and templates, workshops, agendas, and other tools for implementing projects in your own community are all online. And there's also case studies that highlight successful First Nation community partnerships and collaborating using the Stronger Together approach. You know, we're currently undergoing an additional website update where we're continuing to update our stories and those case studies and the sharing the information that we have from our partnerships and current. And so in the next coming months, we'll have phase 4. We'll have more updated information on that, and we're actually going back to kind of give a more fuller picture of some of the other past partnerships. And so we're trying to really establish or be able to provide as much information as we can with the work that we do. For anyone who's interested, we want to share just a few of our publicly available tools and guides. Each of these guides was developed from the need identified by past CEDI partnerships. So again, roles continue to evolve and grow. Each of the following tools is available for download on Cando or on CEDI's website. And so like I said, it's all there, it's for free. And then if, our team is always available for questions if necessary, if anybody wants to take this up and kind of start establishing some relationships within their region. And like I said, we're available, so you can reach us, through our website. All of our information is listed there. We do have a Facebook site, but again, we're looking at how are we going to be more reachable, and so we're not sure we're going to remain on Facebook, but that's for one of the discussions that we have. But we're definitely establishing a LinkedIn account as well for CEDI. But I mean, like I said, all of our information is on the website, and so it's available there. And that's all I have.
It's fantastic. That was a lot of information and really good work. Thank you for sharing all those resources. We have like 5 minutes if there's questions. Anybody has any questions, want to put up your hand? Thank you for all those resource links. And you did put your contact info in the
I am doing that right now.